Hello everyone. Before we start today's video, if you could all do me a solid and lightly tap the like button, perhaps share the video about and leave a comment. If you are not subscribed, subscribe as well. It would greatly help this channel. Thank you very much. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, subdates 221229.7. The Halls of Injustice love ourselves a celebrity inmate, especially because we can watch them as they try to fit in with the other celebrities, as it always ends up with a teabagging moment type situation. Welcome everyone to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome two new inmates to the ISO cubes. They are inmate numbers 149.1 and 149.2. Exciting times. Two people, a husband and wife, will be spending a fair amount of time in two separate ISO cubes. We don't give them shared bunks, that is a privilege, but they can certainly share a bunk with someone else if they want. Their names are Julie and Todd Chrisley. They are in America very well known because they're celebrities, they're famous. Oh wow, how exciting it is. In the United Kingdom, we haven't got a bloody clue who they are. So that's what we're going to do first. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them, because this is exciting. Anyone that comes from reality television, which is what it is essentially, much like that of Josh Duggar, there's a TV show, which in turn means we get to talk a bit about what it is we saw about them on television, how they made their wealth, and what they did committing a crime-wise, that is, that got them into trouble, state level, and then federal level. Yeah, there were two separate trials for this. One in Georgia, and then a federal one that concluded in Florida. So we shall now begin with who are Todd and Julie Chrisley. In March of 2014, Chrisley Knows Best, an American reality TV show, premiered on the USA Network. It revolved around the lives of real estate tycoon Todd Chrisley and his family. The show in question was filmed around various suburbs of Atlanta before moving to Nashville during the 4th season. Yes, I'm reading for Wiki, I don't know anything about them otherwise. Alright. Michael Todd Chrisley, described as a controlling, easily irritated, often unreasonable germaphobe that tries to avoid dirt and aminals. Born in Georgia, raised in South Carolina, previously married to a high school sweetheart before marrying Julie Chrisley, obviously not Chrisley at the time, in 1996. I was 10 then. Wow. Okay. He is known for quips, snarky comments, and rhyming adages. Basically, a bitch. Many of these adages are repeated throughout the series and are in fact on merchandise, because who doesn't love a good catchphrase? He actually had to, because, and I thought he was as well, embrace long-time false rumors of him being gay by saying, "I'm flattered that people think I can get laid on both ends. So that doesn't bother me, and my wife certainly is flattered that as many men want her husband as there are women." Julie Chrisley, also from South Carolina, is the daughter of a Baptist minister. She, with Todd, has 3 children, Chase, Savannah, and Grayson, 2 of which feature on a subsequent TV show, Growing Up Chrisley. She also has a web series, along with being on that show, called What's Cooking with Julie Chrisley, which launched on the USA Network's website. Todd and Julie have a number of related projects. You've got According to Chrisley, What's Cooking with Julie Chrisley, Growing Up Chrisley, Chrisley Confessions, and Love Limo. Yeah, they got a few things going on. They were quite busy, fingers in many pies. Obviously, with Michael Todd Chrisley being a real estate, and I'll quote it, tycoon, the money was made elsewhere. And of course, in turn, once the show started rolling and the money came in from that, yeah, they minted. Chrisley Knows Best ran for 9 seasons. It actually had received a 10th season before, they got into deep trouble. Yeah, that's probably going to affect their long-term future plans, just saying. In fact, all the shows that were connected to them have been cancelled, which sucks for Chase and Savannah, because Growing Up Chrisley was their show. They had in fact completed 4 seasons of it, but because of what happened to their parents, it was cancelled alongside Chrisley Knows Best in November of 2022. That's unfortunate. So now you know a little bit about Todd and Julie Chrisley. We don't need to talk too much about the kids. There are kids from previous marriages. It really doesn't matter. I will admit I do find Chase amusing. solely because he constantly gets involved in get-rich-quick schemes, which is a bit tragic since, family net worth was over 30 million. Probably not anymore, especially with the nature of the crime and it going federal. So what I want to do now is move on from telling you about who Todd and Julie are and move towards the crimes committed. I will state, as I did in the intro, there are state crimes in Georgia and there are federal crimes. And for those in the UK who might not get this, how an individual state handles a crime is not the same as how the federal level deals with the crime. Vastly different, and punishments can be more severe on a federal level depending on the crime you're committing. So, let's have a little conversation about the crimes that they have been, partaking in, no doubt for the bants. Oh, and spoiler, we on this channel love a jolly good excuse. In 2019, inmates numbers 149.1 and 149.2 Todd and Julie Chrisley were indicted on 12 counts of bank and wire fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. That is a lot of crime for two property tycoons. Todd Chrisley had initially said on August the 12th that the blame of this was not of his own making or his wife's for that matter, but on one of the family's trusted employees, claiming that they had been stealing from them. He also said that it started all the way back in 2012 and involved all kinds of really bad stuff like creating phony documents, forging out signatures, and threatening other employees with violence if they said anything. The accusation was that they had evaded nearly $2 million in taxes between 2008 and 2016. The prosecutors had claimed they used their production company, 7C Production, to hide over $1 million worth of their reality TV income from the IRS, and alleged that Todd Chrisley directed an employee to falsify income and asset documents. When this happened, they turned themselves in and pled not guilty to all the charges. For the sake of it, the Georgia Department of Revenue cleared them of their state tax evasion charge because they agreed with them that they had overpaid in 4 of those years and therefore owed nothing in the other 4, cancelling it out essentially. They actually had the net liability of less than $77,000 in overdue taxes for just 1 year of incorrect filing. So when it comes to how the state handled it, dismissed. But while the Georgia Department of Revenue signed a settlement agreement that ended the 2-year investigation, the federal charges for evading federal taxes, that still existed. At the time, Fox 5 Atlanta had reported that both faced 1 count of conspiracy to commit bank fraud, 5 counts of bank fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States, and 1 count of tax fraud, with Julie Chrisley facing additional counts of wire fraud and obstruction of justice. Their accountant, Peter Tarantino, inmates number 149.3, was also charged with 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States along with 2 counts of willfully filing false tax returns. Now this might seem quite short, but I want to now go to the trial itself. This is important to separate the crimes from that of how the trial unfolded. The trial will also include the sentence. We all know how this ended, and I like a good story. But just before we get to it, because this is always worth mentioning, people love to hop on the taxation is theft train. I often find if countries have laws that say you have to pay taxes, states have laws that say you have to pay taxes, and you don't pay your way, or you in some way try and find a way around it, it does quite a lot to shine a light on who you actually are, as opposed to the character you portray when you are seen in public. And as they are public figures, I find this quite a fascinating separation, because if any one of you lovely people has ever watched the TV shows that they were a part of, you'd be able to tell whether or not there were any warning signs that these more underhanded tactics would be something, snakish perhaps, would be something that they would be more interested in partaking in. I'm not an expert though, so I'll defer to every single one of you that has seen their show if anyone at all has seen the show. On to the trial. The trial for this began on May the 16th, followed by opening statements. Oh, how exciting. US Attorney Assistant Annalise Peters gave an opening statement claiming that Todd and Julie submitted false documents exaggerating their wealth to banks to in turn borrow $30 million that they then went on to burn on their affluent lifestyle, while additionally hiding money from the IRS. The money they hid from the IRS was alleged to be the money they had made while on their respective TV shows. Annalise Peters told the jury, "They made up documents and they lie through their teeth to get whatever they want whenever they want it." Todd Chrisley's attorney, Bruce Morris, blamed the couple's former employee Mark Braddock for impersonating Todd Chrisley and committing the fraud behind the couple's back, reportedly turning on them after he was fired in 2012. Now, despite Annalise Peters deeming Braddock a fraudster, she did note that the couple continued the act even after ties with him were cut. Peter Tarantino's attorney had said that his client was in over his head and unqualified to handle the Chrisleys' finances, pointing out that he had failed the CPA exam many times over 20 years, but also went on to state that, Peter Tarantino is not a criminal, just an idiot, I guess. Just to provide some suitable context here, if found guilty, we all know they were, but just for the sake of it, let's indulge this humorous idea they could in fact be innocent. Punishments include, of course, custodial, but also the IRS can grab anything that they own to fulfill the debt, because the IRS moved the charges from administrative to criminal when it's a serious case, which this is, based on the number of charges alone. For one charge of tax evasion, a sentence of 5 years is a possibility, and earlier on I'd mentioned they faced 12 counts of bank and wire fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. 5 years for one of those charges. The others don't look so good now, do they? The trial lasted for 3 weeks, and at the end of it, in a federal court in Georgia, both Todd and Julie Chrisley were convicted on all counts. So this is guilty of conspiracy to commit bank fraud, guilty of bank fraud, guilty of conspiracy to defraud the United States, and guilty for tax fraud. Julie Chrisley was additionally convicted of wire fraud. Peter Tarantino, inmates number 149.3, was also found guilty of conspiracy to defraud the United States and willfully filing false tax returns. I don't care so much about his issues, he's going to prison. Let's go with that. At that point, the Chrisleys faced up to 30 years in prison. I think we can all agree here, they're going to prison. I'm starting to understand now why your TV shows were cancelled. The optics would never look good on any network. On November the 21st, 2022, inmates number 149.1 Todd Chrisley received a sentence of 12 years in prison and 16 months of probation. Julie Chrisley, aka inmates number 149.2, received a 7-year prison sentence plus 16 months probation, but they're not in prison yet. We'll get to why in a moment. Peter Tarantino was sentenced to 36 months in prison. The reason none of them are in prison yet is because they are not due to report to prison yet. That's a strange idea for me, but I can understand in different systems you have alternate methods for dealing with your perps. Todd and Julie Chrisley do not have to report to prison until January the 17th, 2023, 2 days after my birthday. This is a gift to me. Peter Tarantino does not until May the 1st, 2023 because he is undergoing hip surgery and requires suitable rest time. During this time, Todd Chrisley is already filing for an appeal to have everything thrown out, and there is still a distinct possibility he could in fact get rid of all of this and not serve any time in the minimum security prison he'll be going to in Florida, a couple hours away from where his wife will be staying. Also minimum security, where they'll be under very strict routines, very strict uniforms, very strict jobs. Actually, they can do sports as well. It's quite cushy actually, just without any currency. Unless of course it's keister stashed and brought in for you. All in all, they are quite fortunate of where they're going. But let's say either of them do in fact enter a prison. They have not only thrown away their lives for a considerable amount of time, it's unlikely they'll be able to rebuild fully afterwards, but they've also put their children's futures in jeopardy because of it. Now granted, some of them are grown up now, it's on them to step up, man up, and do the job. But since all are used to a lifestyle of wealth, and one lent more towards get-rich-quick money schemes, I'm not inclined to believe they'll do actually anything beneficial or good. And there are still younger children involved as well here. You threw it all away. Why? Arrogance. Always the same. Money corrupts arrogance everywhere. You're morons. You deserve your sentences. 100%. You deserve them.